You're all very welcome this evening. I'm Brian O'Farrell, CEO of the Chamber, and we're delighted to have this reception this evening to welcome the Vicky Phelan Portrait here to Carlow. Big thanks to David Brennan, who I'd like to introduce now, for bringing the painting here, for sharing it with us and sharing it with everybody. So without further ado, David Brennan.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks to everybody else here for coming today. Special thanks to AIST, Carlow IT, which is now Southeast Technological University, and Merck, and also the Chamber of Commerce for all of your hard work over the past number of weeks. I can't bring this around the country without help, and it worked so easy when we got in touch, because we just introduced yourselves to each other. You all, I think, knew each other anyway, but it happened so well. A couple of Zoom calls, and lo and behold, we're here today. It makes my life easier, but particularly for Vicky, and she was only on last night. She wants this to continue the journey that it's going on, and that in itself, to have people here to witness it, to see it is one thing, but to experience it is another thing. And all she wants is for people to come out of here today. If there's one girl or woman that walks out of here and decides, I'm going to get my smear test done, and that saves a life, it's all been worth it. So even up to this day, you might not see Vicky here today, but she is still championing this by poking me in the back and saying, make sure you tell people this when you're up there. And for Vincent as well, when it all came about, to give you a bit of a background on that, so I grew up beside the Kellys, in their house. I lived in their house. Actually, I did live in their house for a short period of time. So I hung around with Vicky's brothers. Vicky was like a sister to me, the older sister. So we obviously know each other very well. When the portrait was unveiled on the Late Late Show, we briefly saw it. I mean, we didn't go through the full detail, but we knew enough of it from Vicky's brief introduction to it and explanation of it, that it was vitally important that we got the portrait to Mooncoin, and that it stayed within the Kelly family, and also the people of Mooncoin. And you'll hear about it later on. When Vicky was younger, there is a story in here as well that you'll hear about. But the people of Mooncoin rallied behind Vicky and her family. And sorry, again, that's in the portrait. It's very, for me, that's very personal. But sorry now. I knew this was going to happen, but I explained to the ladies last week, this hangs in my house, but it still makes me very emotional every time we come to an event. That's the power of Vicky Phelan, really. But anyway, so we agreed, myself and my wife, we had to get this to Mooncoin. It happened. We had the auction. I was texting Vicky back and forth. She had gone to the States at the time for her trial, and we had actually exchanged a lot of ideas before I had bought it, as to what might happen with it, and that it could go to educational institutions, may go to galleries. She had mentioned the Solace Centre in Waterford. She had mentioned Shauna Project, and everything has happened, what we spoke about and how we imagined it, to a T. So it's brilliant what has happened, but when we went to collect it, when I went to collect it was in the middle of lockdown, but I mean, we didn't imagine, say, Vincent being involved at the time. I'd never met Vincent. Had only kind of briefly known the detail from what Vicky had said. But when I met Vincent up at Shepherd's, and he went through the detail of the painting with me, and Vincent said it, he said, that's the first time I have ever had somebody in front of my work that has left in tears. So for me to hear the detail of it from Vincent brought it to a different level, and I said, wow, this is brilliant. As in, this duo will work, and it has so far, and Vicky's, really delighted that it has worked. And for Vincent as well, it needs to work for him too, and that's why I was so adamant that he brings some of his work with him today, because this isn't it isn't just this, he does a lot more work as well. But he also needs to make a living too, and people need to see what he does. It's amazing. It's not just a picture you look at. You need to go through and experience it. So we were grateful that it's all happened. We're grateful that we went to Shepherd's and met everybody there that day. Didn't just go up and collect it, and as Philip said, lock it away. This had a plan. It had a, it's going to go on a journey. It is on a journey, but hopefully that journey will go for as long as possible, and as many people can be touched by it. Even if it's only a crowd of 50 people or 500 people, it doesn't matter. If one person goes home that day, as I said, and decides to get themselves checked, if male or female, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter. That's what it's all about. It's awareness. So for us to be here today, we're more than thrilled, and especially when we have AIST in the background, who are also promoting their services to everybody as well. And additionally, there's fundraising involved. So we're ticking all the boxes. We're delighted to be here, and thank you all for having us here. I'll introduce Vincent Devine, who will go through each of the panels with you, and I hope you all enjoy the experience and take a lot from it too. Thank you.
So thank you all so much for being here. The first thing I want to do is thank you for your time. Time is a very undervalued thing we all possess, and a thing that can be wasted. So I just want to, I suppose, extend my thanks and hope that the time we spend together for the next maybe 40-45 minutes is, I suppose, given some value back and forth in the room. It's a strange week for me. I lost somebody on Friday gone to cancer. Her name was Kate Murphy Flynn, and I am dedicating this talk now to her. It's, I suppose, a privilege to be able to do what I do for a living and make a living at it with painting. It goes against the common thread of the starving artist. I'm not starving, but I'm able to make a living at it. But to be able to do something socially active with it is a real privilege. To take your work, something that I decided when I was 7 years of age I was going to do. And then as I got older and older, I went, oh, this is not as straightforward as I thought it was going to be. So to be able to be here with you people, or be in front of anybody, and be able to do this work is incredibly, it's an honour. So what I'll do is, in the telling of the story of the painting, I will in turn tell the story of Vicky's life. And it's quite a story. So what I'll do is I'll be going from, it's a triptych, so it goes from left to right, it's read from left to right, and I will take off each piece of cloth at a time and then just expound on the meaning behind the painting. And I really hope you enjoy. So without further ado, I'm going to just take you through the triptych. So the first panel is a black horse. Now there's a reason for this, a very specific reason. So for the research for this painting, what I did was I read Vicky's memoir, and on reading her memoir then any questions or maybe holes I found or where I may have a line of inquiry, I decided that I'd go and ask Vicky. So what happened was I read the memoir first, got out my highlighter, highlighted everything I found that would be of interest, that would lend itself to a portrait or to a painting, or the public would engage with, or people that were going through their own cancer journey would engage with. And then me and Vicky had about maybe over 24 hours conversations of what she wanted to include, what she didn't want to include, what she wanted hidden, what she wanted to release down the road. And it was very much collaboration. It was not just me at the helm of this. It was very much me and Vicky having a dialogue together to say what we wanted the outcome to be and what was important to her. So we bounced very well off each other. So what the black horse essentially is this cancer that would eventually follow Vicky into the latter part of her adult life. Now, the reason for the horse as well is it comes back to an event that happened to Vicky when she was very depressed after she had her 2 children. So she was walking in Limerick one day and she was wearing a baseball cap and her hair was up in the baseball cap and she wore headphones. And she was walking down this road and these 2 dogs started to jump at the lead and kind of jump at her. And the guy walking them kind of stopped and told her to take her headphones out. And then when she took her headphones out, he said, "There's behind you." And she looked behind her and there was a massive black horse barreling down the road after her, going to run her down essentially. So the man said, let me just let the 2 dogs off and he'll chase the horse away. So they did. And what happened was she carried on with her walk. And then a few minutes later, when she was at the roundabout, the horse found her again. And it started to stamp at the ground as if it was going to charge her. And she thought she was done for, essentially. And then what happened was somebody in a Mini Cooper pulled up around the roundabout, pulled in, swung the door open of the passenger side, told her to hop in, and she hopped into the Mini Cooper. And then the horse chased them for 2 miles up the road. She went back and told her sister Lindsay what had happened. And Lindsay said, that didn't happen. And she went, how would you make that stuff up? She goes, it did happen, of course it happened. So Lindsay didn't believe her. And John and Gaby are here, her parents are here tonight, and that's true, isn't it, Gaby? Like, Lindsay just didn't believe her, no one believed her. Because it was such a strange experience. And that essentially kind of symbolizes this cancer that was going to follow her and keep pursuing her into her adult life. I mean, the black horse is poignant because of its pose as well. And I mean, when I take off the second panel and show you Vicky, you'll kind of see why it's more poignant. This horse, when I showed it to Philip Shepherd, because Philip was kind of in the sidelines as this was being painted and finished, and Philip showed it to an associate of his who deals with horses and said, why did you pick the pose of the horse? And I said, I just picked it because I thought it looked nice, it was dynamic looking. And he said, that horse is actually in retreat. It's actually been held back by something. And when you see the middle panel and you see Vicky in all her power and in her awareness, it's Vicky that's held it back. She's held it back through her intellect, through her research, and her pure tenacity of self-preservation. That's what's held cancer back. It's Vicky's mindset and who she is. And I can tell you one thing, that mindset became all the clearer when I sat in front of her mother, Gaby Kelly. Because I sat in front of Vicky and looked into her eyes, and I could see that steel in her eyes, that determination. And no offence now, John, but women to women, And when I sat in front of her, I kind of said, where does she get that from? Where does she get that tenacity from? And then when I sat in front of Gaby Kelly, I went, there it is. There it is. That's where it comes from. That's where that comes from. And it was just, I had never seen that level of strength in anybody. I'd never seen somebody lay themselves so bare and be so vulnerable, but still hold their power in their own centre. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. And that's what inspired me to do the best job I could with this portrait. So that finishes off the first of this. And then also as well with the horse, just to finish it off finally, you have the brain and you have the heart. Now Vicky, we kind of expounded on, well, why do you think the horse was chasing you down? She goes, well, maybe the horse was an abused horse. And I presented as the person that had abused the horse. Or maybe the horse was trying to comfort me in my depression, because there's a huge amount of research being done into therapy with animals, dogs and horses. So there's a huge amount of research there as well. So that's just to reinforce the idea of the heart and the brain. So what I'll do is I'll unveil the second one and I'll kind of go through Vicky's life story then as well and kind of what she went through. So the second panel is our own Vicky. And what I do with the paintings is, and you'll see them through the other works here as well, is I use the human anatomy to dialogue what the person went through. Now, there's a few reasons for that. One is I've written a manifesto, and the manifesto kind of references the fact that we can't perceive inside the body, that we all live with these scars, essentially, all these things we've been through, be it physical trauma, be it psychological trauma, be it showing up somatically in the body. It all kind of it keeps the score. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, that the body will remember things that have happened to it psychologically, physically, and it will, manifest in certain ways. So in looking at Vicky's story and looking at the story of her life, we did sit down afterwards, and I will share this with you this evening. We did share where we think the cancer may have came from. And when I studied Vicky's life and I held it out like an accordion, and I said, Vicky, can I just run something by you? Do you think this may be where the cancer came from? Is this how it happened? Are these the events that led to all these things happening? And she said, Vin, I think that might be what it was. But because of the cervical smear scandal, she never had a chance to get ahead of it, ever, really. And that was obviously addressed in her High Court case. So we won't go into that too much because it's all been, done and dusted. But what I'll do now is I'll go down through Vicky's body, and in doing so, I'll tell the story of her life. But I want to just give a slight brief background as to Vicky's life and the things she's gone through. So when Vicky was 17, she was in a car crash in France and broke 70% of the bones in her body. What was happening was she was coming back from a disco, and her boyfriend at the time, Christoph, was driving, and a guy who had been self-medicating fell asleep behind the wheel of the car and went straight into them. So Vicky lost her boyfriend Christoph in the crash, lost another girl in the crash, another boy called Christoph, strangely enough, walked away from it, and another friend of hers ended up in a wheelchair. So Vicky was pulled out of the car wreckage and was in the ICU for months, I think, Gaby, wasn't it? Months in France. And Gaby had shared with me that she had thought that if it wasn't for the care in France, that she would be gone, wouldn't she, Gaby? Yeah, she received tremendous care in France. She had near-death experience as well. She was that bad. She nearly went and came back. And she came back and started her recovery. And this is the start of the tenacity I was talking about. And this is where David comes into the picture, because David had said to me, he remembers Vicky after the car crash, and you'd been sitting on the couch and she put her legs up on you. So he remembers. David was there. He's seen it. He's seen the very early stages of this. And I've come in at the end as an observer of somebody in the public and now a friend of Vicky. So this really works, in my opinion, because Davy is the root to the past here. Davy grounds this painting. And what I'm trying to do is push it forward to raise awareness and advocacy for all these things that people are maybe too afraid to talk about. So there will be things I will disclose in going through Vicky's body. And there is details of the cervical cancer surgery and the recovery and stuff like that that may be harrowing to hear, but in Vicky's words, that's just too bad you have to hear it, because it's stuff that people are not actually being told, and people are finding it out on their own, in the bathrooms or in the wards or in the hospitals on their own. So after Vicky had the car crash, she went through her rehabilitation, and Davy remarks on seeing her in the housing estate they lived in, and she was jogging around the corner after how long? A year of recovery? Yeah, a year. And Davy looked at her and said, that woman's meant for something big, because that's not normal for her to be running like that after the accident she had. So she always had that drive and that input in her. And then what happened was, when she became pregnant with her first daughter, Amelia, she was out gardening, they think, and a parasite got into Vicky's eye. And the parasite went down into Vicky's body and started to attack Amelia's fetal tissue. So it started to wear away partially at Amelia's brain and then at her eye. So Amelia has partial sight in one of her eyes. And it meant toxoplasmosis is what it is, yeah. And it meant that Amelia was born with an incredible amount of medication in her system, and she needed medication, and Vicky needed medication as well. That led Vicky then to having postnatal depression, quite severe. And then her daughter Amelia had a very bad accident then, and Amelia's dress caught fire, and Amelia has severe burns from here up to her chest, and is skin grafted. And Vicky was very much the one who was changing the dressings and things like that. And Vicky had said to me that was probably the event that led the cancer to go from there to there. And then obviously there was different things and different financial problems and things like that, like everybody went through with the crash, you know. And then, of course, the cervical smear scandal happened. And that was the beginning of the end, because any chance Vicky had to get ahead of that cancer was taken away from her in that moment when those smears were sent over to America and sent back as having, no abnormal cells, and they had. So you can see what she was up against. And really, when I'm talking about this painting, I'm trying to show it this painting of hope. It's a painting for people to come and engage with, to say, look, don't forget what Vicky went through, but please go and get checked, and please go and get your smears and stop putting them off, because nobody should have to go through or get to the stage that Vicky's at now at the moment. So what I have here is I have her brain to represent her intellect, and using her, essentially her intelligence, to research and look for the clinical trials she needed to find in order to extend her life the way she did. Using Pembro and using all these different avenues, she fought and she found out using her intellect. And it's up the side of her head like a laurel plant to represent historical importance, because even though we're in it at the moment, Vicky Phelan is an incredibly important woman in Irish medical history. Incredibly important. People will look back in hundreds of years and they'll remember Vicky Phelan's name and the way things were as they were for women's health. You come down, you have her lovely long hair then cascading, which unfortunately she lost in the most recent treatment, but she was very proud that Pembro gave her a standard of living, that she was able to keep her hair, and she was proud of her hair. But that's why painting realism tends to stop the narrative, is you kind of have her bald and you have her with her hair in one simultaneous image, which means you can talk about it. So she has her eyes fixed on the viewer, a slight smile, a kind of a knowing smile. Then you have her vocal cords here in the middle that are in the shape of the infinity symbol. She has a necklace that she shares with her sister, which is the infinity symbol, like the number 8. And I suppose that's my nod to that I want Vicky's message to endure long after we're all gone, even after I'm gone, that my kids might take it on, that even after my kids are gone, that women feel supported and heard in what happened to Vicky. You move down then into her lungs. One lung is connected into her breast, and you have the milk ducts to represent breastfeeding her children, and that she's a very, very, very maternal person. And that struck me more than anything. She is absolutely devoted to those children. And that's why she's fighting as hard as she is for the children. And that's why it was important. She was very proud of breastfeeding, which is very under-supported in this country as well. You have the other lung then, which is a generalised lung to represent women's health and women's issues. And then you have the car crash here in France, which is the severance of the paintbrush down through these ribs, because she broke her bones where the seatbelt was, across here and across the pelvis, and then she developed cervical cancer. So you look at the trauma from the impact of the crash, and I'll expound on that later on as well. You also have the heart, which is blue, and it's pink and vibrant to represent that Vicky has this tremendous spirit and wit, and she has this personality, but it's also tinged by the sadness of everything that went before her. But she keeps it in the back, and she drives on with the positive. But then you have the shamrocks on top of the heart to represent the Irish people taking her and comforting her into their own hearts. You come down to the aorta here as well. I painted her tumours on in thick paint, and then I took a scalpel and I sliced them off. This was before she went for her clinical trial in America. So I was trying to kind of, I suppose, positively manifest her healing, trying to take the tumours away from her, try to kind of, I suppose, make it happen the way I could, which was do it through this. And then I have them taken off and put in boxes as well and kept, And it's all around this area that you have the cervical cancer. You have her brain in her lap to represent her intuition and her intellect and her intuitive intellect, using her gut intuition to know when something was wrong and act on it straight away and say, I'm not going to leave this, I'm going to move on it. And it's combined in here with a book as well. So you have the book in her lap to represent that she's a huge advocate for education and essentially using your education to know how to advance and do the research. You move down then into the cervical area, and here you have a colour of blood. Now, what Vicky had said was she was intimate with Jim, and what happened was there was a letdown of blood after she had been intimate. And if she had known about the colour of the blood for the letdown, she would have went and got checked earlier. And she said most women don't know how to check out for the colour. And then she talks about, and she wants me to, talk about what happens after you get the radiation, after you get the radium, all this stuff. Vicky had said after she felt like her insides had been melted. She said it was horrendous. She said after it, she couldn't even so much sometimes as wipe after going and urinating because it would tear her labia and she would be in agony for days. Her pubic hair fell out. You know, all these things, she said, women are actually, it's happening to women in the bathroom on their own. And she said the women shouldn't be going through this. And also the men should know what's happening so they can be there to support the woman in their life if they're going through it as well. Another massive issue is the lowering of the cervix and penetrative sex becoming nearly impossible. The men want to be intimate with their wives, the wives want to be intimate with the men. And they can't do anything about it. It leads to massive breakdowns in relationships. And these are all issues when it comes to cervical cancer that people are tremendously under-supported in talking about, because some people lack the language to be able to articulate what it is to go through these things. And I'm not here to tell women what they should and shouldn't do. I'm here to say that I am teachable. And you can teach me, that I'm willing to listen. And any stories anybody has, I can carry them into the portrait and I can carry them on. You know, for example, the femur. The femur here, after we were featured on Nationwide, a woman contacted me and said, my mother died of cervical cancer. And she goes, I'm just wondering why the femur is so prominent. And as I painted that painting, I painted the femur. I said, why did you paint the femur like that? So I have to remember, I'd be standing in my studio talking to myself, going, take it in, leave it out, take it in, leave it out. And something told me just to leave it in. Just leave it in, Vincent, it's there for a reason. This woman said an early indicator of cervical cancer in her mother was her broken femur. And Vicky broke her femur in the car crash. And Vicky didn't even know that. So even Vicky, who's done all the research, there are still little grey areas that people don't know about that can actually save somebody's life. So this painting is here to save lives. This is what we're trying to do with this. This is what me and David are trying to do. We're trying to say we're early male feminists, you know, that we're here to learn. And we're here, I suppose, to teach as well, the other generations and the younger generations as well. So this finishes off this part. Now, in her two hands, she has her two children. But before I leave that, here's the Pembro going into her system. So she had said when she went to go for her infusions with Pembro, she said she would literally just do this and walk in. I'm not a patient, I'm going in and I'm leaving. And she said she would imagine the Pembro going into her veins and just like it was just healing her and going all in through her. And she said that made it much easier for her to get the treatment. And that's what the Pembro is here. It's coming in through her body and it's coming in all around it. But in her hands you have her two children. You have Amelia, who's a Crimson Rosella. And the reason is the Crimson Rosella is a bird that notoriously does not like to be caged. And Amelia has that spirit. She has a free spirit. She doesn't want Amelia to ever be caged by anybody. So this is a Crimson Rosella, the coloration when it's an adolescent. When this is a fully grown Crimson Rosella, it will be bright blue and bright red. And then you have Dara as a sapling oak. Dara is the Irish word for oak tree. So here you have the oak, sapling oak. And you'd like to think that Vicky would leave the canvas, leave this imagined landscape seen in Doombeg, plant this oak tree, and it would grow into a big, strong, solid oak tree. And then you also have her marriage to Jim here as the wedding band around her finger to represent this union, this beautiful union that created these two children who she absolutely adores and why she's hanging around as long as she is. Then you have the two parents, Gaby and John, who are with us, obviously. There are the two trees under her hands to represent all the support they gave. First of all, when Amelia was not well, when she was younger, Gaby was very much there, and then John as well with Dara. So you have the two parents there under as the family tree supporting the hands. And then you come down the leg, and you have the colonnade where everyone came into public awareness of Vicky. Now, Vicky had said when she was on the steps of the High Court, she said she was very, very, very sick. I mean, her tumours had come out so far that her stomach was looking like she was pregnant. She said as well, you got an awful fright when you seen her coming out of the car at one stage. She started to change colour and stuff. I mean, Vicky was really, really far on in this. And Pembro was the game changer there. It totally changed her standard of living to the point where she was sick once every week, and that was it, or once every 2 weeks. So there you have the colonnade, and it represents her High Court case. So it's under her foot. She's crushed her High Court case, and it's behind her now, and it's done. It's under her foot. But her other foot is rooted into the sand to represent the want to stay. She wants to be here. She doesn't want to go anywhere. But nothing on the beach can ever stay. Everything has to go out with the tide. I think that's what makes the setting of it more poignant than anything. Vicky picked Doombeg. She said it has to be in Doombeg. It can't be anywhere else. It has to be in Doombeg. And the poignancy of the fact that everything will be brought out with the tide, I think makes it a very poignant setting for what we have here. And then you also have this dress and cape coming down, because the dress was made for her when she won Person of the Year. And it's kind of like almost like a cape, like she's our superhero sort of thing. She's kind of our hero. Vicky's kind of our national hero. And then you have the star in the sky, and this is for Dara, because when she was trying to explain to Dara about the cancer, Amelia was old enough to maybe understand it a bit more, but Dara was much younger. And how she explained it, funnily enough, was Star Wars. And what she said was, it was like that the Death Star was the tumour, and the doctors and surgeons were the Jedi trying to lance it away. And she said that made it so tangible for him at a young age that he could actually get on board with that and make sense of that. And she said that saved a lot of heartache and a lot of sadness, because he could then gradually come to the realisation himself. So that was very important for her to put in this star. And a lot of people see a lot of things in the star as well that have lost people of their own, they're kind of star in the sky and stuff like that. So, it has different meanings for everybody. The last panel is this white horse. The white horse has a few different symbols. One is the adage, death rides on a pale horse. And we don't know whether this is death that's come for Vicky. At this stage of painting the painting, she was in the process of heading off for the clinical trial in America. So we don't know whether this is death riding on a pale horse, or a pale horse personified as death, or whether it's the white horse cheering an oak that will take Vicky to the States and extend her life, extend her youth somewhat, and bring her back to our shores, like the white horse brought Usheen back in the old myth. It was very much uncertain at this stage. Nobody knew what was going to happen. That's why I was trying to, take the tumours off. We thought they may shrink. There had been evidence that they were going to go away. There had been different trials done to people, and it just didn't happen. So it kind of, I suppose, makes it all the more potent now as to the way things are. The painting seems to change as Vicky's situation changes. It changes with the mood, and it changes with the tone of what she's going through. So you have the horse, though, however, no matter what horse it is, it looks back at a life well lived. It has the eye of empathy. It looks back at this figure of somebody who lived a life of service. And the black horse will get her eventually, but we just don't know when. And it's all very much up in the air at the moment, especially at the time of this painting. But you have the still life here to finish it off. And the still life dialogues the gynecological journey of what women go through with different kinds of cancer, especially cervical cancer. You have the candle here represents the brevity of life, that everybody's time is limited. And it just matters, all that matters really is when your candle's going to go out. It makes it even more precarious, the fact that it's actually beside the ocean, which means it could be snuffed out even quicker. It's risky having it beside the ocean. You have the tissue paper to represent the tenderness of the labia, like I spoke to when Vicky said she would tear her labia. You have this lovely, delicate cloth to represent femininity and the softness of femininity. You have the mushrooms to represent fungal infections. They're on top of the sanitary pad to represent that I believe, and Vicky believes, that women should have full awareness of their gynecological health from the point of menstruation, and they shouldn't be ashamed to talk about it to their mother or their father. My daughter has been profoundly affected by Vicky Phelan, profoundly, to the point where she wants to do something to advocate for women's health, which makes me incredibly proud as a father. She was able to come down to the sitting room and talk about having discharge to me and her mother. And it was like there was no big deal, because there is no big fucking deal. It's discharge. What's the big deal? And this is the boundaries. These are the boundaries myself and Davy are trying to break down. That young women and young men should be able to talk about these things openly and frankly, like Vicky did. Because Vicky was the game changer there. All we're doing is extending it on. And for it to come from a man, like I said, I'm not telling anyone what to do, I'm just saying I'm here in service. And Vicky has put herself to that. She said, I'm happy, Vin. I'm happy with the tone you're going with. So you come along here to the lemon and the fig. It represents the bittersweetness of a diagnosis. That even though Vicky knew what was happening to her and what was happening with her body, what was it? You know, what does it give her? How much time? How much pain she's going to be in? Who knows? So it's bittersweet. And then also you have the eggplant or the aubergine, which is the current male emoji phallic symbol for the penis. Now, the reason it's sliced is for a very particular reason. Now, Vicky didn't think I was going to put this in, but I put it in anyway. So, a lot of the women that went through the cervical smear scandal had a lot of atrocious things said to them by their male consultants who were in their 50s and 60s, some 70s, right? And she said some of the stuff that was said was so outrageous that I actually couldn't repeat it here now. I actually wouldn't, in respect to the women that it was said to. But I can tell you it was outrageous. And I've sliced it to represent that it doesn't matter what appendage is between your legs, or how big or small it is, or how we may think it actually affects your ability as a man. You should be first and foremost a professional and understand that you're sitting across from another human being that needs your support as a professional. So it's sliced to say you're not indispensable. There'll be plenty more male consultants that come after you. Just don't forget it. You come along then as well to the rose. This represents all our Irish roses in solidarity that are going through cancer at the moment. And they're there in awareness. And you have her friend Ruth, who passed away from the cervical smear scandal as well, used to sign off all her messages as a blue butterfly. So it's there. So that's the power of symbolism and art. Is Vicky can look at that and see a blue butterfly, she can look at it and see Ruth. She can hold space for Ruth in front of this painting. Anybody can hold space in front of anything they want or they've been through in this painting. And then you have the doctor, the stethoscope to represent doctors and everyone that helped her. And then you have the dowser. So the dowser is a holistic dial that spins around and gives you yes or no answers like this. So it represents her connection to her spirituality. Maybe not always religious. Now, a fun fact as well, which I didn't tell her until I met her, was my middle name is Pio, after Padre Pio, which I got plenty of slagging in school for, by the way. Plenty. And when she came up to see me in the studio, somebody had given her a relic of Padre Pio, and she had it in the car. And I was like, that's a bit strange. And she went, yeah, it is a bit strange. Maybe it was written in the stars. I don't know. I'm named after Vincent Van Gogh as well, so who knows, right? The Starry Night song by John McLean. I'm named after that. So, you know, I'm doing it, you know. But then you also have scientific medicine as well in the pill packet. But the final part of the triptych are these footprints walking off the edge. So it's Vicky's footprint, and it's a hoof print as well. And really, it's which horse is going to get her, or which horse is she going to walk off the edge with. At the time of this painting, she was advocating for the Dying with Dignity bill. So because she got so sick, she couldn't carry on her advocacy with that. But, you know, there was every avenue that maybe, you know, maybe legislation wouldn't have got through as quickly. But, you know, Vicky would like the opportunity to die on her own terms if she wanted to. Like most people should. Like I wish my grandmother had had a chance. Like I wish my uncle had had the chance. Like I wish other people had had the chance. Instead of seeing them there wasting away in front of you, you know? So at the stage of that, she was walking off the edge with whatever horse she wanted. But basically, she does it on her own terms, and her heel leaves the edge. And she walks off the edge of the canvas on her own terms into the unknown. And that's the triptych.
I'm going to hand you over to Lorna McGrath from Aisht. And Lorna, if you'd like to give us a little bit more insight from Aisht's point of view, and we'll hear from you. So, Lorna McGrath.
Thank you. A very hard act to follow, Vincent. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lorna McGrath, and I'm the Service Manager of Aged Cancer Support Centre in Carlow. I think everyone will agree that it has been a heartfelt celebration of Vicky's life and her achievements, of all that she has overcome, and the battle that she continues to fight for her own health and the health of all. We are honoured to partner with Carlow Chamber of Commerce, South East Technological University, and the Visual Carlow for this celebration here this evening. Aged Cancer Support Centre fully rely on donations, fundraising and sponsorship to keep our services operational. And for that reason, we are both delighted and thankful to be the chosen recipient of the funds raised as a result of this event. A very special thank you to Vicky's parents, John and Gaby, for joining us this evening. We, the community of Carlow, are holding Vicky very close to our hearts today. To David Brennan, oh, your generosity and foresight is the reason that we are here this evening. We are incredibly grateful for your kind support and for the awareness that you have raised for cancer through the Vicky Phelan Portrait. To Vincent Devine, you have truly created an outstanding painting. It's really a magnificent portrait of Vicky's life. It is a symbol of hope and a legacy of precious moments filled with integrity. Thank you so much. Now, let me tell you about the services that we provide at Aged. We offer emotional support and practical help to anyone affected by cancer in a confidential and relaxed environment. Our services include counselling, reflexology, manual lymphatic drainage, wellbeing classes in the form of mindfulness, yoga, art therapy, anxiety workshop and prostate programme. We have men's, women's and children's support groups and a bereavement group. Since opening our doors to the public in 2012, we have supported just under 1,200 clients. The services are fully accessible to the community, anyone diagnosed by cancer, their families and carers. All services are free of charge and the demand for services continues to rise. Aged would not be where it is today, located at our new centre at 46 Idrone Park, without the outstanding generosity and commitment from the community of Carlow and its surrounding areas. I would also like to take this opportunity and to make everyone aware that Aged are celebrating their 10th anniversary in conjunction with the launch of its new home on the 27th and 28th of May this year. This event is taking place at the centre, and I would like to extend an invitation to everyone to join us in this upcoming celebration. On Friday, the 27th of May, we will have the official launch and celebration of our 10th anniversary, while on Saturday the 28th of May you can tour our new premises and meet the team of Aged. The Vicky Phelan Portrait will be available to view in the centre, and Vincent will also be joining us to talk about the portrait along with other speakers throughout the day. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Lorna. So what we will do now is we will leave you with a few moments as well so you can further appreciate the piece. I know a lot of people were dying to see it from the start and the unveiling was part of the process. Vincent has also brought 3 other pieces which to share with us this evening as well. So there's one just located just behind everybody here and 2 on the lower part of the gallery. And we're delighted to welcome Vincent here, you know, as the painting starts what is a month-long tour in Carlow, and to start it here in visual and to be finishing its journey in Aged, I think is really quite important in that as well. A couple of other thank yous I want to add. Greg and Mike from Hedgehog, who back us up an awful lot, who's been recording the session, and I know that will be playing out to a different audience to that over the next while as well. Thank you, of course, to the team at Visual for the space and that this evening. There's some more canopies and crostini that they're available as well, which were prepared by Lennon's. There's some wine down there, there's teas and coffees still there, so take a little bit of time before Visual will kick us out. Thanks also to Cathaoirleach Fintan Phelan, who joined us this evening, and I know Deputy Murnane was here also, she had to step out now. But more importantly, thank you to you, everybody who's taken the time to come and be part of this evening. Thank you, John, Gaby, all of our speakers this evening, David, Vincent, Colin, Lorna. I'm going to leave you in peace to enjoy. Thank you.